you want to look at a photograph that just makes like smoke pour out of your body, that you just, all the fluids that can come out of your openings do. And so the museum people come along with the squeegee and they go, oh, that guy was here again. Look at the pictures. He's such a mess.
Welcome to Subtext Discourse Art World Podcast, demystifying the world of contemporary art and photography through conversations with those involved in the field. I'm your host, Michael Dooney. My guest today is W.M. Hunt, photography collector, curator, consultant, writer, former gallerist, and all-around champion of photography. Bill is a great storyteller, and he shares some really good ones about his experiences with photographs, photography dealers, and photographers themselves who have made photography such a meaningful part of his life. If you haven't already, please subscribe to Subtext and Discourse Art World Podcasts wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a rating and review on your platform of choice, as this enables more people to discover the show. So without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Bill Hunt. Thanks, Bill, or W.M. Hunt, as you're professionally known, for taking the time to record this again. As we know,
My pleasure.
I know we're not going to be able to recreate the conversation we had a few months ago, but I'll still start from the same spot. What you often say is that photography changed your life and it gave you a life. So let's use that as a jumping off point.
It's funny, I don't remember how I stumbled on that statement once upon a time, but I certainly use it all the time to describe myself, because I consciously made a choice once upon a time that I needed, when I turned 50, I decided I needed a life's mission.
Okay.
And so you're shopping around at the mission store for life missions. And I thought, oh, it's photography. So when you're in doubt, Bill, as I refer to myself in conversations with myself, when you're in doubt, Bill, talk about the joy of photography. That can be your fallback mission, so that if things are going really slowly and you haven't had any fun lately, I'll just start proselytizing about the enormous pleasures of photography, because photography has offered so many opportunities to me for friendships, for intellectual stimulation. You know, I can go to a photo show in a museum and there you go. That's an hour well spent. Or I can take the thorn out of the paw of a young photographer and try to set them on the road to improvement. I'm happy to tell a young artist, did you ever think about it this way? Or maybe as bold as destroy this picture and never show it to anyone. It's funny, I was talking to you earlier, and there was an event last night, and many people in my life over the years were present. And I taught for many years with a woman named Alexandra Brez, who's now the deputy editor of People magazine and has left the world of photography behind, which is photography's huge loss, because she was incredibly insightful and fun. And we taught a class for 4 or 5 years to 20-year-olds at the School of Visual Arts. And I'm sure that there was a course description, but it was very much our finishing school. And if you survived our finishing school, you were a better person, because we would make you work very hard on yourself and trying to maximize the things you brought to the idea of being a photographer. It was huge, huge fun, because we just thought young people were like Play-Doh, modeling clay, and we would try to fashion them into the best versions of them we could get them towards. And I hadn't seen Alex in a few years, and she came, and it was so wonderful to see her. And we kept telling other people how much we loved each other, because we just thought we were the best teachers ever to exist. But we genuinely wanted to get people to maximize their potential. It's fun. And so the reason why I'm doing this with you today is because maybe it reaches somebody and maybe they go, oh, I assume that you're going to let me talk forever on this thing, so I'll just keep going. So I'm going to talk about something that I don't know that I've used this one before because it's kind of a newish idea in my little book of ideas. There was a studio visit with Danny Lyon on Zoom during the pandemic. And Danny Lyon is a prickly pear kind of personality, I believe. I don't know much about him, but he's never been very nice to me, so keep him at a little distance. He has no idea who I am. Also, I would probably be able to offer that. Anyway, they're doing this studio visit, and he talks about the idea of Dumbo's feather. And Dumbo needed this magical feather to be able to fly, Dumbo the elephant. And I love this idea in photography that so many artists think they need some magic. They need to find magic. And I would offer that they do need to find magic, because if they want things to be magical, you got to find what it is in you and for you. And if you can find that, that'll make all the difference. It'll make you you. It'll make you unique. So I like the notion of finding Dumbo's feather and grabbing it and then flying all around the circus tent. That was for free. There you go.
Well, I think I read that story on your website.
Yeah, there are no news stories. You're probably one of the few people who have actually read a lot of what I've written. And that's too bad, because I think I'm a pretty decent writer, and I think I offer insights, and that I wish people read my little essays that I put out into the world, because I think they're meaningful and they're intended that way. So thank you for reading it.
I really like them. And yeah, I'm glad you brought up the story about the feather, because I think that was connected to a story you'd shared about Janet Borden.
Who?
Janet Borden?
Oh, Janet. Dear Janet Borden. She's a magical feather. In my life, there have been a few people who've been very, very influential. And I think Janet, as a preeminent photography dealer, took the time early on in my collecting career. We fell in love with each other for all the right reasons. We both thought we were really funny, and we thought we were really smart. And we thought that pretty much everything was ridiculous in the world. We still do, too. But Janet took the time to look for photographs that she thought would be wonderful for me. She was a younger dealer, and so she didn't need to only sell her little team of artists. Janet made Tina Barney famous. Tina Barney should go to the cathedral and get down on her knees and thank Janet Borden. Janet is divine. She's divine. And she had this very funny, fresh approach to pictures. And she would look for pictures for me. And she had the sense to show me a half dozen pictures in a year. And I'd buy a lot of them. She had a good sense of how much money it did not have, which is wise. I would also say that Frish Brandt was very influential. And influential in a way in which they both gave me confidence in my looking, that there was something very affirmative about dealing with them. And I'm forever indebted to them about that.
So when you started then, so if you said that they helped you have a freshness about how you saw things, what was it like initially? If I remember correctly, you didn't start collecting at galleries, did you? You actually went to an auction house and bought your first print.
I bought a photograph at an auction house. And then, that was such an alien behavior anyway. You go, what are you doing? And then the way to see photographs 100 years ago, you could see photographs in museums sometimes, or you could see them in galleries, because the gallery scene was starting up. And those dealers were hungry for clients. And so there were certain dealers who took me seriously enough. I will, for the longest time in photography, I knew who everybody was and had the very strong feeling that nobody knew who I was. And that offered me a kind of anonymity. And that's what it was, good or bad. nobody seemed to give a shit about who I was, and that's how it was. It was irritating, and it was liberating, because I could just... I've thought about this last night. I have a couple of alter egos, or one is Dancing Bear and the other is Blind Pirate. There are two photo collections. One is called Collection Dancing Bear and the other is called Collection Blind Pirate. And the Collection Dancing Bear was the first collection, and those are images of people that are magical and heart-stopping, and you don't see people's eyes. So the whole Dancing Bear thing is a longer, stupider story. No, I take that back. It's a fine story. Nonetheless, I took to going to art galleries, and I would sign the books as D. Bear, hitherto under-celebrated surrealist art collector and phenomenon. And the D. Bear thing was pretty funny, because some people got it and liked it, and they went, oh yeah, okay, you can be Dancing Bear. Or they would be a total nut job about it and not get it at all. And I went, well, that's probably not a person I should be dealing with, because they don't have, we're not seeing each other. And I like to be seen.
Well, how long was it then that people did start to recognize you and notice that you were collecting?
There was a time that happened, something about aging. If you don't know when anything happened, I mean, like the date, then you never get older. So that's my Dumbo feather there. That's how you don't get older. At some point in my life, I became the chairman of a very noble, estimable organization called Photographers and Friends United Against AIDS. And I became the chairman because the founding president was dying and died. And I had raised some money for them when they were younger. And suddenly I got searched out to be the chairman. And I think it's the only time in my life my partner has ever said to me, oh, you should do that. And I thought, okay. I really had no network and no experience. And there's this really, I think, funny story that the first day I ever ran a meeting, I was sitting at the table and thinking, oh my God, how do you do a meeting? I have no idea how you do a meeting. And all I could think of was the opening credits to a TV show called LA Law, in which they would all sit around the boardroom table and talk. I go like, geez, Bill, that's not a real deep place to draw from, a deep well to draw from. And then somebody at the meeting afterwards asked if I'd like to be shown how to do a timed agenda. So this very wise person taught me how to do a timed agenda, and there was no holding me back after that. I was on it, and let's do it. And this was a period of time then that was very spirited for me, because if you had $1 and had looked at a photograph, I would call you up and ask for the $1. I went from the guy who hoped that the hostess at the cocktail party would have a dog so that I could play with something. I went from being that person who was completely intimidated by the phenomenon of a party to being this asshole who could really work a room. And it was fun. I just found this part of myself that I guess was always there, but was forced into motion. And that's how I met people. I would ask them for the $1. Or I said, if you can't give me the $1, help me find the $1. And I have all these friends that I still have from that period of time. Wow. I knew all the photo editors in New York City because they wanted to help me. And I loved them. I thought they were great. I thought they were just warriors, finding all these great photographs and publishing them. And that period of time was really, really fertile for me. And so that changed my life. Becoming the chairman of that organization was a big deal because it made me a very social animal. People think that I'm very outgoing, and
I would agree with them.
And I am, but I wasn't.
Oh, really?
I trained myself.
Because in one of the stories I read, Yeah, one of your great photos, at least some really good ones, there's a direct quote from you that said, "I became very assertive about meeting people and reinventing myself."
Yep, that's actually it. Also, back up a second to the listening audience, which I know is in hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands. If people are at all titillated by this conversation, they could go on to wmhunt.com/some really good ones, which are a bunch of essays that I wrote during COVID mostly, some since. And I'm so happy with them. And that's what I did during COVID. I'd get up in the morning, and before I got out of bed, I would start obsessing about a single photograph that I thought was great. Because most photographs aren't great. Most photographs today are good. And that's not special enough. I like the great ones. So that was the premise, that I would write about a great photograph, what I thought was a great photograph, and why I thought it was great. And very often that would offer up some sort of story about me, and I would share it. And thank you for reading them, because I'm really proud of them. I want to tell a complete sidebar story. I'll hijack this for a moment, because I wrote one that I didn't post online, but it's a sweet story. I had a neighbor whose name is Leonard Knowns, who's now like 95, 96. During COVID, he moved out of the building to move into a assisted living situation, and his wife died, and we lost contact. And I was very self-critical that I hadn't made the effort to keep in touch with him, see how he was and everything. And then one day I got an email from his daughter, and I looked at the subject line and went, oh no, God damn, this is... and it was not bad news at all. It was, in fact, an invitation to a photo show. Leonard Knowns, who'd been a very successful commercial photographer, was having a portrait show at the residence, and would I come? And so my partner and I called him up and said, yes, we'll come. This is great. So Leonard Knowns did a show in the spirit of small trades, the Irving Penn Classic Worker Project. And he did these photographs of the staff from the facility, and they're great. They were just great pictures. Okay, they were really good, really good pictures. And they were consistent, and he'd printed them all in his room, on a desktop printer. Great black and white prints. This show just knocked me out. And over the course of the afternoon, we're talking, and he's talking to my partner about death and how he's okay. He's had a good life. He's not anxious to die or anything like that. It's fine. It's been a very, very fulfilled life. But then he complains that this is not a good time for him to die because he's been offered a second show. And I thought, photographers have lived forever, it seems. There's nothing like a great black and white photographer who's going to be 110. In fact, last night, the party I went to last night had Dwayne Michaels came, and Dwayne's only 93. And Dwayne can more than hold his own. And that's just so joyful to be around. So Leonard Knowns, bless him, just great work. And I loved writing about it because it was so much fun to enjoy the success he was having with it. And the pictures looked wonderful. So that's part of the pleasure of my life in photography, to have that experience and have it be so meaningful. And when you upgrade to actually doing these podcasts with the video, you'll see that there are tears streaming down my face. That's a new story. People don't know that one. But boy, it was such a meaningful, juicy afternoon to be with him.
Oh, it's lovely. Thanks for sharing.
And that changes your life, to be able to have that experience and have it be so rich. Very nice.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, just to jump back a bit now. You mentioned that you had...
No, you have to bear in mind that I would totally hijack your show.
No, it's okay. I'm trying to keep it on somewhat of a track.
Oh, thank you.
You had the dance. I didn't realize you'd named your collections the Dancing Bear and the Blind Pirate, and then I guess everything that doesn't fit into those two categories is some third one.
Yes.
But the Dancing Bear or the Unseen Eye one, I guess that's probably your most known collection of images, isn't it?
Correct.
How did you decide that you were going to collect images of people or collect images where the person's eyes are obscured or not shown? Like, what was it about that?
The answer that sometimes I give is the voices. I heard the voices. The voices said, go out and buy these photographs. That's as good an answer as any. I don't know. It seemed like an idea, and I did it, and I had a lot of fun doing it. And, oh, my God, here's your life. It's just changed completely because you're buying these photographs. I mean, it's given me a whole network of colleagues and friends and a reason to get up and do stuff. The last 3 weeks, I guess, so I had a big party last night. That's why I'm being sort of weirdly cagey about what I've been doing. But it involved rehanging photographs in my apartment. And I probably had 200 pictures up now that weren't up before. That's a lot of pictures. And also trying to sort through my books. I just have a huge, huge library. And I don't have enough space for any of this. But it's impressive how much I've managed to get put away and put up. But as I was preparing for this party yesterday, I did have a point at which this party was going to begin. And I looked like I was a storage facility for boxes. I just have the best box collection of anybody. And they're all full of books. And then the books are on the shelves, too. I mean, so anyway, it got to be a half hour before I had to put pants on. And I went, I didn't finish. So today they're like piles of books on the floor. And I go, well, people have been in my house. It's not going to be a huge surprise what it looks like here. And I thought, good for you. Just go put your pants on and open the door and have the people come in. And there were a lot of people at this party. And I had made the editorial, I'd made the decision not to hire anyone to help me. So my partner was here, but that's limited assistance. And I figure, people know where the bathrooms are. People know how to pour themselves a drink. What the hell? Knock yourselves out. Let's just go easy. So that decision to kind of give up, it was great. It just made it easier for me. And I was so happy with how things looked and everybody was well behaved and fun. So there's some strange advice in that and going do what you're going to do. Just get to a point where it's fine. It was just fine.
What was the reason you wanted to rehang your collection or you wanted to hang up your collection?
Oh, that's a really good question. Thank you. There's this collection of photographs of American groups, mostly before 1965, which is kind of arbitrary, but I guess, I don't know. I think I witnessed some kind of change after 1965. Also, I don't want to deal with any living. I love photographers, but I don't want to have to collect them. I don't want to have to. I just want the pictures. Anyway, so if I I wanted to see them. That's the primary reason. I wanted to be surrounded by these pictures. And I do think it's a way of focusing my energies, literally showcasing the collection and myself. And maybe that'll help me get a book out of this because it's a good project. I've written about it. I think that it should be seen. I think that it should be a big tour. And that's what I think. So it's all marketing.
Is this the Blind Pirate collection?
Yes. And that's the groups.
Yeah.
And, one of the ironies in my life is that I'm a much bigger deal in Europe than I am in the United States because I've had shows in Europe.
Okay.
And that's a very cool thing. You show up and you're in Amsterdam and you're at Foam and you're the big show. And, people go oh, wow, you're that American collector. And you go yeah, I am. I'm just trying to get to the bus right now. But it's just funny to me, ironic that I have this success as someone who exhibits stuff there. And it's taken me around the world. I've really gone all these places as a collector, as a photo person who, I will say that I'm often articulate about photography. I have very strong feelings about pictures, that I think pictures are really valuable. And I think there's a way of, lately I've been focused on the difference between looking and seeing, and that I think overwhelmingly people look at photographs without seeing them. And there's a big difference.
Okay.
And I do think that I have a talent, a skill that I've developed that I see takes a different. It's different from looking. Looking is cursory, and you get the information and everything, but it doesn't land on you. And when you are consuming a great photograph, or the great photograph is consuming you, it's a real visceral experience and spiritual and all that's. You want to look at a photograph that just makes like smoke pour out of your body, that you just, all the fluids that can come out of your openings do. And so the museum people come along with the squeegee and they go, oh, that guy was here again. Look at the pictures. He's such a mess. I think that's funny. So, but that's what it should be. I think you should be dancing, and your heart should dance. And that's great. There's a new story that's going around, and I'm going to tell it. And it puts me in a good light and a bad light, and that's okay. So I went to an event at Magnum. Jim Goldberg was doing a conversation, and I thought, oh, I should go to that because he's provocative. My way of thinking is, well, take a pencil and paper and just write down some notes about yourself to see what's actually going on with you. It's an opportunity to get off the dime, to like activate. So I go to this thing and I call up the office at the last minute and I go, can I get into this thing? Because I know it's full. And I go, yeah. Of course you can. You can do anything, Bill. Which I think is, that's just wonderful when somebody says that. So I go down, present myself to the young woman with the clipboard, and I go, hi, I'm Bill Hunt, and I'm not going to be on the list because it just called. And so I'm not. And this guy comes up behind me and says, oh, yes, I can vouch for him. And I go like, what? I said, I think I've got this under control. I really don't need to be vouched for. I don't say that. Yeah. I think that. So I go in and I'm waiting for the elevator and I'm listening because I don't know who this guy is. And then I hear him say his name. And now I'm of two minds whether to tell you his name or not, but I will. So his name's Ed Kashi. And Ed Kashi is a famous photographer, a famous documentary photographer, photojournalist. And so we're waiting for the elevator and I go, hi, I'm Bill Hunt. And I don't know if we've ever been introduced. I certainly know who you are. And he says, yeah, we've been introduced. I know you. Oh, okay. So when did we meet? We met about 20 years ago. You looked at my portfolio. It was when you were working with the photo agency 7 and I was joining 7. And so you looked at my portfolio. Oh, okay. So do you remember anything I said? He said, yes, I do. Okay. Yes, I do, because I've repeated it to friends over the years. And I go, great, this is going to be really good. So I've looked at lots of portfolios. I've got no problem looking at portfolios. I, in fact, like it. So what did I say 20 years ago? And he says, you said my pictures weren't fuckable. I wait for a moment and I go, well, that's definitely me. That's definitely me telling you that. And then I thought, oh my God, that was a really bad thing to say because your pictures were undoubtedly not fuckable. But me telling you that they're not fuckable is not going to like educate you. You're just not going to get what I'm saying. And what I was saying was they didn't have any empathy. That certainly pictures that are descriptive, but they weren't moving. And that's what I meant. And he's remembered it forever, and he reminded me of it. And he tells that story from his point of view, which I imagine is quite different. And he's gone on to become what would appear to be a quite fuckable photographer. So maybe I saved his life. Let's look at it that way. Or maybe I just so pissed him off and he resolved never to talk to me ever again. But he knows the story because I know he repeated it to people this summer. Anyway, that's my Ed Kashi story. And I hope I didn't hurt his feelings. And undoubtedly I did because I'm a brute. But, you want to be in the game, man, you better show up. It's competitive. And, finding great photographs, you don't find them very often. It's a really small percentage of, this. It's everybody wants to be reasonable because then they don't have to get into fights with people, I guess. Or I don't know why you have to be reasonable. But it doesn't get you anything. It doesn't. People used to, when I was a dealer for many years, people would go, I don't understand why you show what you show. And I go, look, it's New York. You got to be competitive. You got to show mean shit. And I meant it. You want to do a memorable show. You want to build an audience. You want press. And you want to go to work and really enjoy it. You want to be surprised. You want to be fresh. It's very hard to be fresh. And that's why a lot of photographers don't understand why dealers show what they show, because they want it to be good and lovely. Going to that job is not as much fun as showing the mean stuff. Mean's probably the sharp stuff. There you go. Sharp. That's the better word. I got to tell you, when I showed Luc Delahaye the dead Taliban photograph, which is a very big picture, it's like 3 meters wide, and it's a dead guy in a ditch. And I will say that in Luc's body of work, it was atypical because it was more in your face than the rest of the pictures. Luc had a very consistent, specific style, he was very not in your face. He was really like a step back. He's working on a big, large format camera, and he really was not in anybody's face. But the pictures were very difficult for people because they were very current, and they were about violent situations, and people don't like that. They don't like to be
made uncomfortable,
jostled. They want all to be sweet, nice. So Luc had done these pictures of Eastern Russia, and they were phenomenal. A project called Winteriza. These bloody, grim, bitter pictures with alcoholism and murder and mayhem. And I saw these photographs at a banquet, an ICP banquet, and I was with my business partner, and it sounded like we were having sex at the table because we were making so much noise. It was unexpected. So the dinner was over, the event was over. We fairly stepped on people's shoulders getting to Luc Delahaye to tell him how much we wanted to show him, to give him a show in New York. And this was before I owned a gallery. I worked for people, and I was just offering a show. I'll give you a show, give you a show. I'd never ever done that. And fortunately, my friend Chris Boot, who was then the head of Aperture, was there, an old friend of Luc's. Chris said, "Oh yes, Luc, you should do that. You must do that. You must do that." So we got Luc, and we're going to do Luc, and Luc is a very special guy. That's a euphemism for incredibly difficult, impossible, to the point of impossible. So we're going to do the Winterreise thing, and it gets postponed because we get a chance to show Joel Peter Whitkin, and we're going to show Joel Peter Whitkin. So Luc gets bumped. And then Luc calls me up one day. He says, Bill, you must come to France to see the picture. And I go, yeah. That's great, Luc. I'm going to come to France to see the picture. He says, no, I send the ticket. This is a horrible French accent. I send you a ticket. Okay, I'll come. So I go to France, to Paris, to see a picture. He picks me up at the airport. I like that. And we go right to his flat, his little studio. And there's the dead Taliban, the 3 prints of the dead Taliban pushpinned around his mattress on the floor. This is a shocking picture because it's a dead guy with a piece of straw in his mouth. And he's completely peaceful, very complicated picture, and pushes so many buttons on people that I loved that. I just, oh my God. And I'm thinking, I have no idea if anyone would want this photograph in their lives. Why would you put this in your living room? This from the guy who has a Joel Peter Whitkin with the guy with no head. So I look at them and I go, I want to present these. I do want to be the guy. No, I just wanted to present them. I just thought this is a really worthy thing. So I came back to New York and got somebody to publish them in a magazine. That was a big deal. And then I got the LA County Museum of Art to buy a print based on an 8x10 Xerox of the picture. I thought, me selling that to that museum based on a Xerox, because they were expensive. It's a stupid dealer story, but I was so excited to sell it that I misquoted the discount and gave them a better deal than I was supposed to. But I was so excited to, this big deal museum's going to buy this photograph. So that's Luc. And then Chris Boot and I did a book of these pictures, and there were a dozen of them, in 6 weeks, because Chris had left Aperture and he was going, he'd left Fiden. He'd left somebody and he was doing his own imprint, Chris Boot Inc., and he needed product. And so we put this book together in no time at all, as an essay. And the irony of that book is it's very out of print because I think he printed 1,000 maybe, and the forklift ran over half of it.
Really?
Yeah. So that's a way of getting a book out of print. So anyway, that was a long story, but I haven't told it in a long time. So thank you.
You're welcome.
But Luc, my partner said to me the other day, I said, somehow the conversation was artists who upset you. And I said, I didn't work with artists I didn't like. I really loved my artists. And he said, you didn't love Luc. But even though he broke my heart a couple times, I have infinite respect for him. And, the difficulties just melt away thinking of how truly honored I felt to be presenting that work. That's what's fun. You know this for yourself, that I imagine. I don't know you much, but you seem to demonstrate a real tenderness, a real affection for the field. And that's what distinguishes you. It's my no asshole rule. So go with that. Just don't become an asshole.
That's good advice.
Thank you.
I'm wondering what direction we should go with this, because we've really gone all over the shop.
I've got one for you. And you'll undoubtedly have thoughts about this. So a conversation came up recently was about a generational change. Photography's changed, and people who are of my generation have aged not out of the business, but away from the business. It's just different. The appreciation, consideration of photography is different. And in the marketplace, in being published, in being exhibited, being sold, I don't know how dealers make a living anymore. I don't know how they get people to come in the gallery. Do they want people to come in the gallery? Are they all online and I don't have an instinct for it anymore. And I did have an instinct for it. So that's sad. That's the passing of something. It's change. Change is something you have to adjust to. And so I'm frustrated for you to find some fresher meat. Who are they? Who are you talking to that's going to talk about what's coming down the road? Specifically, a conversation today was about the International Center for Photography. What are they doing? What are they going to do? What's their future? Do they have any sense of it? And who's the they? Who supports them? Who wants the best for them? I want the best for them, but I don't know what that is. And I need some sense that there are younger people who come along and really want to make that place happen. And that's probably not the case. So that's sad.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's just shifting interests, what people resonate with. I saw something recently, somebody was talking about it with regards to music and how younger generations connect with music differently, or it's less important for them than it was maybe up until the 90s or the early 2000s. And I wonder if with images and things like that, and with art in general, it's the same kind of thing. I guess with all kinds of creative expression, also with movies, because now I guess movies, for the most part, the time between a film at the cinema and then coming out on a streaming platform is really short. Whereas I remember before, if you went to the cinema to see something, it might be a year before you would see it on VHS. And you had to really wait to go and see things. And in the context of music, I always wonder, because I know, like for me, I would go to the record shop every Friday after work and see what new things had come out, or just have a look through things that I'd not explored yet. But if I wanted to listen to something, I had to hope they played it on the radio, or I had to get the physical music to hear it. I couldn't just go onto YouTube or to Spotify and type it in and hear it straight away. And I wonder if that immediacy in all kind of aspects of visual culture and music and film has affected how we connect with things, and at what weight of what importance we put on them. Because do people need to own pictures anymore? Do people want to collect them?
It's true. I find that now I'm surrounded by these old pictures. You know, they're pictures with the authorship is not anything that's vital to my appreciation of the picture. They're just old. They're just like old pieces. They're old magic feathers. There you go. I'll put an ending on this conversation. That when I woke up this morning, I installed this grouping of a room full of banquet style photographs. So this is a photograph that would be made on the occasion of a wedding, or more likely some convention. When I look at the photograph, I don't know who anybody is. I don't care who anybody is. And I don't spend much time going bit by bit and looking at all the little faces. And I was musing this morning about the technical virtuosity of these photographers to be able to corral a couple hundred people who are drunk sitting at tables and getting the hold still for 2 seconds while you take the damn picture. And it's got to be a great big view camera, so it's not like they're not noticed. And I thought, oh, maybe I'll spend some time trying to sort out who some of these people were, who these men or women might have been, and how in the world they came to make this kind of photograph. Because it's, I'm sure, thought of as craft, as as occupational skill, as opposed to some kind of artistry. It's in approaching it as an antique that it takes on this more exotic quality. And I find being in the room with all these pictures to be quite nurturing, maybe not nurturing, but calming. One of the things about there being the dancing bear idea is that there's the cave of the dancing bear that I can retire to. And I like that. That's good to have. So that's on my mind, thinking about these pictures and wondering if they would be meaningful to other people. I don't know. They're meaningful to me. And I do think about it. I try to figure out what's going on with me. Why are these pictures appealing to me? A dear friend of mine, Ed Osowski from Houston, Texas, who's a lover of photo, was instrumental in my having a show at the Houston Center for Photography a long time ago. And it was a funny thing because it was when my book came out, The Unseen Eye, Photographs from the Unconscious. So it's like 2011, maybe. Good for you, Bill, with a date. I know when I was born and I know when the book came out. So he's trying to get the HCP to show my collection. And I didn't really want to show my collection there because that collection is a big deal. And the HCP was not prepared to deal with a big show like that. But I was trying to be gracious and not tell him like, no, this show's too good for you. No, this is a mighty fine show and I can't be doing that. But then I said, let me call you back. This is the HCP person. And I go, let me call you back in 10 minutes. And I literally looked under the bed because I knew I'd been squirreling away all these photographs of groups because I thought they were like the three-legged dogs of photography that I had to save them. Didn't want them being put down. So I had, in fact, probably about 80 pictures under the bed. And so I called him back and I said, I might have this other show. Okay. So by the time we did the show, I had like 150 pictures that I could do, and it was floor to ceiling, and it was great, and it was crazy, and it wasn't the main show, so I didn't have that responsibility. I could be crazy. And this show was just nuts. I had the best time with it. Thank bless the HCP for doing the show. Then I realized, oh my God, you're now a collector of groups, of American groups. And as I went along, I became more articulate about what I was looking at, what I was looking for, which was magic in photographs. I will say that my kill ratio on buying these pictures was not as good as it was with the collection Dancing Bear. The Blind Pirate, I bought not as many good ones as the proportion's different. But there's some just dazzlingly strange, wonderful groups of pictures. There's this great mortician school. That's what it's, a mortician school, where they've managed to make a V with all the tables so that it's kind of inappropriately decorative. And you go like, what is that about? That's just nuts. So I like a picture like that. That's a good one. So the groups then have had some iterations in Europe that were fun. I do describe organizing an exhibition of your own collection. Organizing it and exhibiting it is the most fun you can have with your clothes on. That's my line of it. Anyway, my end game on all of this is I ultimately just want to get rid of everything. I'm done. I want to be a dolphin in the sea with a change of clothing. And that's it. And a phone. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Do you think I brought you back to the beginning?
I think so, yes. Yeah.
Good. I like a good circle like that. I like a good straight line. I like a good vector. A good vector is good. But, a good vector takes you off to someplace, and how are you going to get back? A circle, you're back at the beginning.
You are, yes.
Let's go with that. Michael, you're a wonderful host. Thanks for the invitation.
No, you're very welcome, Bill. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed my interview with Bill. If you visit his website, wmhunt.com, you can read his many essays about some really good photos. And if you're curious about his Blind Pirate collection of American groups, he regularly uploads new finds to his Instagram page, which is wmhuntdbear. I'll put links to both of these in the show notes. As always, please subscribe to Subtext and Discourse Art World podcast wherever you consume your podcasts, or go on better and leave a rating and review of the show. Sharing with your friends who would also find this interesting helps promote the people I interview and the projects they're involved with. That's all for now. Thanks again for tuning in. My name's Michael Dooney, and you've been listening to Subtext and Discourse.